Bine v-am regăsit, dragi prieteni ai ziarului de sport. Astăzi refațăm întâlnirea din sferturile de finală ale campionatului mondial între Anglia și Franța, avându-l alături de noi pe un invitat special, istoricul sportului, istoricul fotbalului, de altfel Max Portman, un englez jet de jet, care a acceptat provocarea ziarului de sport de a discuta cu noi despre campionatul mondial și despre evoluțiile freelance la acest turneu. Vom iniția imediat discuția cu Max, nu înainte însă de a vedea, așa cum am obișnuit, intro-ul nostru dedicat Cupei Mondiale. Welcome, Max. Thank you for accepting our invitation of having this chat about the World Cup.
Thank you very much for having me, and I should say salutatea.
Good, thank you very much. Max, cum ați văzut, s-a orientat foarte bine și în limba română, știe deja de altfel, el are și o legătură de familie. I told our viewers that we also have a family link, family connection to Romania. If you can tell us more about this connection.
So, originally my family came to Romania in the 1850s, and they've been there ever since. My great-grandfather was born in Romania, in Braila, as was his father was born in Sulina, as my grandfather was also born in Braila, and my family still live in Bucharest to this day. My dad's cousin was the controller of anii at Bucharest General Hospital, and his daughter is still a paediatrician at the Bucharest General Hospital to this day.
Okay, potrivit Max, familia sa are aici sau aici în anii 1950 și acum mai bine de un secol și ceva, aproape 2 secole, inițial la Brăila și Sulina, astfel că, iată, avem un invitat pe care leagă și o legătură pe sânge în țara noastră. Okay, that's very interesting to hear about your connection, and I hope we'll have you over here in Romania at some point, Max.
Fingers crossed.
I think you'll enjoy it thoroughly. Moving on to the subject we all want to hear, the World Cup, I will ask you, what was, in your opinion, the evolution of England so far at the World Cup? How would you describe their performance so far? And what do you view as the most, let's say, enjoyable, the best game that England got so far?
I'd probably have to say the most enjoyable game so far would be the 6-2 win over Iran. I think that was England at their best in terms of attacking play and defensive play at times. I think so far it's been a very good tournament, considering England came into the tournament in rather bad form. We hadn't won a game in 6 games. In the summer, we looked very lost. We lost 4-0 to Hungary and got dominated in that game by the Hungarians. So I think now to come into this World Cup looking fresh, looking prepared, looking ready to go the whole way through the tournament, I think it's looking very good. And I think there's a lot of promise there for England, if not at this tournament, but future tournaments. But I think so far, so good. It's stating.
Max ne spune că, din punctul său de vedere, cel mai plăcut pentru fanii englezi, cel mai important meci a fost cel contra Irlandei, de altfel a fost și scursul acolo, 6-2, fața jucătorilor din Asia, națională puternică din Asia. Și dacă această performanță, dacă această evoluție foarte bună a jucătorului Gareth Southgate se va repeta, este toate șansele ca Anglia să treacă mai departe, chiar în semifinalele mondiale. I have to ask you also about players that drew your attention, players that were, in your opinion, the best so far from the squad. I'll also translate the question for our viewers, sunt în prima sa, cei mai buni jucători de până acum Angliei, cei pe care i-a remarcat.
I'd say in terms of best performers in the squad, I'd say Jude Bellingham has probably been the real standout star. And at 19, it's amazing to watch such a talent, dominate games and just have complete midfield performances. And it really I think it must be concerning for European players, but great for England fans to watch this young talent playing so well now. Imagine what he'll be in 2 years at 21 at Euro 24, or in 4 years at 23 at the World Cup in America. It's frightening to see such potential grow. I think everyone's been fantastic so far. Everyone's been professional. Everyone's played well. I think in terms of underperformers, though, there hasn't been one standout star. But I think, if anything, the team themselves underperformed against America. I think it was a very disjointed, lost performance. The American high press was significant, and they very much unsettled England in that respect. And I think, in a lot of ways, that America should have won that game, honestly. I think they were the better team and they deserved to be. But then England,
really
in the last
fair play
game,
to say.
I mean, I've got to be honest. But I think in the last 2 games against Wales and Senegal, England have showed their professionalism and they've executed their game plans to perfection. And I think the 3-0 wins justify them otherwise.
We've also had the drama of King Sterling. There's been a burglary at his home in England, and he had to go back to his family to support them. But as far as the news goes, he'll be back in the England squad. Talking about underperforming, yes, King Sterling was not his usual self at this tournament. But do you think he'll come back? Do you think he'll show another face of the tournament? We'll see another routine.
I hope we see more of Raheem Sterling because he is an exceptional talent. I remember watching him playing for Liverpool at 17 and thinking, what a player, and I think now that's 10 years ago, and now watching him now at 27, 28, he's a talent, and I think England are better with him in the squad than without him. But if he doesn't come back and his personal issues are more important, I totally understand. But honestly, England have got enough talent in there. We've got Jack Grealish, we've got James Maddison, we've got Marcus Rashford, Phil Foden. We've got a lot of amazing attacking talent to fill the gaps if Sterling decides he's not going to come back.
Okay, perfect. We also have the England squad here on the screen. Do you think there were any selection mistakes by Gareth Southgate making up this list?
I think honestly, on paper, that's most likely his strongest squad. I think there was a lot of contention coming into the tournament about selecting Harry Maguire, because Maguire has been out of form for Manchester United for a long time now. It looks composed, shaky, I think is the best word to describe it. I don't know how that would translate in Romanian. Shaky is the best word to describe it. I think the only complaint I can really make about that squad is he really should have taken Fikayo Tomori, who's been playing exceptionally well out in Italy. And I think maybe Ivan Toney from Brentford. But I think part of that, I think it's a pretty strong squad. It's a squad Southgate can rely upon. And I think if England are going to go all the way in this tournament, it's not a bad squad to go all the way with.
Revenind la limba română și rezumând ce a spus mai devreme, are încredere în această echipă Angliei, a fost selecționată. Un pic contestabil selecția lui Harry Maguire, de la Manchester United n-a avut cel mai bun sezon, a fost un dintre jucătorii care s-au omis. Toate acestea însă e o echipă extrem de puternică în toate argumentele și probabil că selecționerul Angliei a făcut alegeri inspirate, cel puțin asta ne indică evoluția națională până la acest moment. Trecând un pic de subiectul Angliei și uitându-ne de partea cealaltă a tabelului, so looking at the whole table for the top rounds, Max, I have to ask you, who do you think will go all the way to the final from that see? So we have the stadium where England versus France will be played. It's very recognizable, it's iconic, it has that specific locally representative tent, impressive. So we have on the 10th of December, this in France. Please next.
I think in terms of the England-France game on Saturday, I think England can beat France if they have defensive solidity. I believe that if England do go with 5 at the back, 5 players in defence, which normally Gareth Southgate relies upon in the bigger games to beat bigger teams, I think that would be a good idea. I think having 3 central defenders would be good because the right centre-back and the right wing-back could very much isolate and nullify Kylian Mbappe, who is obviously France's biggest threat this tournament, and has shown France very much like to work down the field along the left-hand side, all along the left wing, and I think Mbappe is a huge part of that. So if England can nullify France's threat down the left wing, that would be a great start. And secondly, in the middle, I think if they can play a high line and keep Giroud away from the box, and maybe have Declan Rice or Jordan Henderson man-marking Antoine Griezmann, I think England could win. If you take those 3 players out of the attacking equation for France, I think England most likely could win. But I think it won't be a high-scoring game. I believe it will be 1-0. England like to play almost what some would call anti-football, in that it's so negative, it's very boring, it's to control the game and then nick 1 goal and then further control the game. Very much in the mindset of Jose Mourinho in that respect. There's no room for flair. There's no room for excitement. It's very much, we are going to be professional. We're going to do a job. We're going to take the win, and we're going to go home.
You call it parking the bus, no?
Yes, parking the bus is the perfect way to describe that. Yeah.
Okay, so to translate for our viewers, mine at least, ceea ce ne spune Max este că și-ar dori de la DSOT să aibă o apărare de 5 oameni, cu 3 fundași centrali care să activeze pericolul în apă. De asemenea, vede pericolul din partea lui Giroud, previzibil, marcatorul general al Franței, națională, și de asemenea poate Henderson sau Declares care să-l activeze pe pasatorul acela genial al francezilor Aflați. Și ceea ce mai crede Max este că Anglia va face ceea ce se spune că este ceea care trebuie să murim, și anume să înscrie un gol, după care să tragă în apărare, deci va fi un joc cu un sfert de finală cu puține gole nostru de astăzi. Nu vom avea un joc spectaculos pentru că este foarte mare și atunci niciuna dintre echipe se va aventura. Probabil că nu vom avea scăruri pe care englezii au și dar și Franța spectaculoasă și permite să facă acest lucru. E bine, revenim. So to get back to my previous question, from the other side of the about round the bracket, do you see one all the way?
So who do I see going all the way to the final?
Yes, and maybe facing England, maybe facing England if you manage to.
Yeah, we spoke about this just before we went live, didn't we, me and you, Teo? So I think it'll be interesting, if England do get Argentina on the other side of the bracket, because I believe that's who we play if we beat France, and if they beat the Netherlands. I think that would be very interesting and quite sweet for England fans, because you've got an old rival historically in France, and then you've also got another old historical rival in Argentina. So I think that would be quite sweet for England fans if they could beat France and then potentially go and beat Argentina as well. But I think, honestly, I think if France do perform well on Saturday, I do believe France will beat England. It's much as like pains me to say it, I do believe France will most likely win. And I do believe they'll go to the final, and I think they'll most likely face Brazil. And I think from the other side of the bracket, it will be Brazil who get through to the final, and on our side of the bracket, I believe it will be France. So I'm put it down at the moment as a France-Brazil final, but anything could happen over the next 3 days. So I could be terribly wrong.
Orice englez care se repută, Max este circumspect și spune că dacă nu se va califica Anglia de Franța în finală, unde va juca cu Brazilia, deci calificarea finală și Franța s-a impus marcator de asta la două gole, cea finală de discuție și Italia. Nu putem rata și subiectul Marocului. Marocul este revelația, mai între revelația acestei echipe. So,
I'd say brilliantly against Spain. I don't think I've ever seen such a complete performance by a team than I've seen Morocco play against Spain. They defended well, sometimes a bit lucky against the quality of Spain, but I think they deserved their win when it came to the penalties, because the Spanish penalties were just awful. They looked poor, they looked soft, and it made Bono's job very, very easy for him to just decide where he was going to save the penalty, where he was going to dive, and when it came down to it, Morocco deserved to win.
That's true, and moving on to their next match, the one against Portugal. There is also historical rivalry here. We also have the drama surrounding Cristiano Ronaldo, who could start again on the bench. Do you think this maybe makes or gives them a better chance against the Portuguese side?
Maybe. I mean, Portugal have got a lot of amazing attacking talent, as shown the other night against Switzerland. I mean, 6-1 is a huge, huge win against a team like Switzerland, who are very well known for keeping games the score down in games very low. They normally lose maybe by 1-2 goals at most. So to get demolished almost 6-1 is a huge shock. And I think Goncalo Ramos is a great talent, and he really emerged on the world stage on Tuesday night. And I think they've got Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes, and Rafael Leao. So I think even with Ronaldo sitting on the bench, there's still a threat to be contended with Portugal. But I think if Morocco defends well, and Morocco get a bit lucky, and the Portuguese, become frustrated, I think Morocco could very easily take the Portuguese to extra time and penalties again and beat them.
If they do manage to qualify and get past Portugal, I think it's possible now. Semi-final it's all at stake. It's the place in the final for them, so maybe your predictions or our predictions could get wrong, and Moroccan side could clinch place in the final. Destroy place in the final.
Yeah, I believe it will be an historic place in the semi-final as well. I don't believe an African team have ever gone past the quarter-final stage.
That's true.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it sounds like fantasy football.
Of course, I think very much this World Cup has been fantasy football. For all the teams we thought would win, none of the teams have won. I mean, we all thought Spain would most likely beat Morocco, and they got held to a 0-0 draw during 120 minutes over normal time and extra time, and then got very much picked apart easily on penalties. So, and the group stages showed that as well. There was a lot of shocked teams like Germany, Uruguay, all knocked out in the group stage, and no one ever saw that coming. So I don't expect the unexpected.
Sorry to interrupt you. Do you agree with Gianni Infantino, the president of FIFA, who said a few days ago that this is the most spectacular World Cup in history?
I think in terms of shots, yes, but in terms of everything else, it's been professionally run. And I think if you're looking at terms of games, yeah, it's been a great World Cup, but in terms of the feel of it, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding it, and it came in a bad place, and I think the football has somewhat saved it, but not as much as I think Qatar and FIFA would have liked it. But that's my opinion.
I also think that Infantino overreached saying that. Of course, it was a tournament to promote. It's his job.
Yeah.
Și Max a faptul că a fost un aceste Cupa Mondială și chiar dacă de surprize de echipă mare din arte a fost foarte spectaculos, totuși nu putem spune că este cea mai mondială din istorie și cum să-i dau dreptate. Going back to the subject of Romanian roots, I know that also a fan of Romanian football, at least at the national team level.
I do affectionately follow the tricolor. Tricolor. Sorry, I got pronunciation there wrong.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
So, tricolor.
Tricolor.
Do you remember?
Okay.
Do you remember the team of '98 of 2000?
Yes, I do. That was when I started to watch football as a child. So that Romanian team of the 90s is still affectionately remembered in England. The likes of Dan Petrescu, who came to play in England, I believe, for Chelsea. Adrian Mutu, who also played for Chelsea at one point.
Controversially.
The less we say about Adrian Mutu, the better, I think. There's also, obviously, the shining light of... you also had Pescu, who went on to play for Barcelona, if I'm not mistaken, and replaced Ronald Koeman. And I think the shining light, really, of all of that was probably Hagi. I mean, Hagi is... I can imagine in Romania he must be like a god. So over here we just watched him with wonderment. So I can imagine in Romania you guys must think he's a footballing god, really, what he could do.
So people in England, they still remember Hagi?
Very much so. You know, if you speak of... I think if you said to someone in England, what can you tell me about Romanian football? Hagi would be mentioned within the first 2 or 3 things.
Hai să ne povestești faptul că sunt auzi să minte Anglia, dintre care Petrescu, Gică Popescu, să fie capitanul Barcelona, de asemenea, Patricina lui Gică Hagi și celălalt jucător din Istoric, potrivit care a fost aplicat. On the screen, we now see some sequences from games between England at tournaments such as Euro 2000. This is a from encounter, and I know that we've been unlucky in facing Romania because we lost both of those matches, both in 1998 in France, and then years later at the European Championships. So here we have Michael Owen, which was in star. I think his first major tournament was the World Cup, and he scored against Argentina. As you mentioned Argentina earlier, so I think he announced himself on the world stage in France. I agree.
Yes, that was some goal. Even now, when someone mentions Michael Owen, that goal normally comes up in conversation.
Yeah, and I know he also had his debut at a very early age. Relația cu celălalt și copilul precoce al fotbalului englez, casa de Premier League. What about that match between Romania and England at Euro 2000? I know Alan Shearer said about it that it was very painful because they somehow never wanted to get into a group with Romania, but during that period they always had Romania. It was something of a jinx for them.
I mean, a lot of people watching this will just remember how good that Romania team was in the 90s and early 2000s. So, I think England, in the 90s, were a strange team. They went through stages of being good and then bad. They were very inconsistent, and I think by 2000 there was a very strange part in English football where there was a lot of the older players who played in this game, like Nigel Martin, Martin Keown, Paul Ince, who were in that Euro 2000 squad who shouldn't have been there, really, by that point. I think their better days were behind them in that respect on the international stage. And there was a new breed of talent coming through, such as Michael Owen. I believe David Beckham played in this game, and Sol Campbell. So it was a strange transitional period. And I remember, I was funnily enough reading up on the game earlier in preparation for this, and I found a great quote from Harji, funnily enough, of all people, who said that it was a great win for Romania, but personally for him it was terribly sad because he knocked his idol, Kevin Keegan, out of the European Championships.
I didn't know that Kevin Keegan was Harji's idol. It's good to know that. Declarație de lui Gică Hagi după acel meci în care am scos Anglia, concluzia că acolo Keegan era idolul său. So he was the manager. Great. But we also know that you are a historian of football, Max. Your main topic of interest is West Ham, and I also spoke with Ham. I wanted to ask you, first of all, how did you end up studying and researching about West Ham? Afterwards, I will ask you about Romania's great football club.
So originally, I supported West Ham since I was a child, and when my PhD interview came up, I originally wanted to talk about all London clubs and how they've developed over time, mostly since the Second World War, because there's a huge gap in English football literature, which, especially in an academic sense, it doesn't involve football after the Second World War. It was, up until recently, it's been very underexplored. So I thought that would be a good topic, and my supervisor, Dr. Astra Giurgiu, he very much said you should choose one club and one club only, and for me, there was no other choice for me. So that's how we ended up talking about West Ham, and my thesis itself is talking about West Ham United and how they engage with all the communities near and far from the club since the 1980s, which I think is a very interesting period, because you have the Premier League, you have the European Super League, you have a lot of things that we can talk about across Europe, across the world of football, which I think a lot of people will take interest in.
We are looking forward to reading your thesis, your research. So I interacted a bit to translate from englez. Așadar, subiectul pe care studiază Max, inclusiv la doctorat, este clubul său de suflet de Astra Giurgiu, care se ocupă de familie acolo. Și teza lui se concentrează asupra felului în care West Ham ajunge să influențeze și să devină parte a vizionului comunității care are acest club, ciocanare, ce se spune în Anglia. Okay, and now I'll ask you, as mentioned earlier, about the Romanians who played for West Ham. I don't know if they are a part of your thesis, but that would be interesting to hear. I know we've had probably three players, one of them being Diego with my history.
Ili Dimitrescu, he was, if I remember rightly, he was a star of the Romanian 94 team. Yeah, I was.
He scored against Argentina.
Dimitrescu, he was just a bit before my time, as was Radicchio, and I remember my dad talking about him when I'd grown up a bit more, and him saying such a good footballer. Why did he come to West Ham, first and foremost? And then also, after watching him, that's why he came to West Ham. I don't think it very much worked out for him at West Ham, unfortunately. You know, I think he's a great footballer. My dad said, you could tell there was talent there. He was a great footballer. It just, something didn't work at West Ham between the club and Dimitrescu. And unfortunately, you know, we never got to see what you guys got to see in 1994 at the World Cup.
Și nu am ascultat foarte ce am scăzut, a auzit multe povești de la cei sunt la faptul său, dar atunci când s-a transferat de la West Ham, l-a întrebat sau a întrebat de ce ar veni un astfel de jucător, un jucător atât de bun care făcuse senzații la Cupa Mondială, de ce s-a transferat la West Ham. După ce l-a văzut jucând pentru West Ham, eu gândesc că mai fi cealaltă perioadă în carierei, la 10 ani. Atunci a spus, de asta but we also had, like you said, Florin Rădiciu, and I know he's somewhat of a folklore character at West Ham. Can you tell us why?
I don't know if the story's true, but there's a bit of an urban legend going around that Rădiciu, he was supposed to be playing for West Ham one day, and the manager at the time, Harry Redknapp, rang him up and said, "Florin, where are you? We need you to play." And he said, "Oh, boss, I can't make it. I'm very sick." But it turns out that he was actually in Harvey Nichols, which is a very upmarket shop in London, shopping. And the great quote, as I think you've included along, you'll see in the banner in a minute, is he was working for £300 in Bucharest, and now he's wearing a £28,000 watch. That's he used to quote for 3 hours in Bucharest for a loaf of bread, and then suddenly he was wearing a £28,000 watch. Yeah, maybe the transition was a bit much for him, and I think there was a disconnect between Redknapp and Rădiciu, and Redknapp. I think that all these foreign players in. Rădiciu was one of 11 foreign players he brought in around 1996, 1997, and very much thought it'd be a great idea. He could buy them at cheap. He could buy them. No one knew how good they were, and I think he thought it would be a great experiment and it would go well. And I think a lot of the players came over to England for the first time, and they just didn't settle properly. And Redknapp, instead of saying, "Look, it's my fault, I should have let them settle," and go, "Oh well, they're useless, aren't they?" So, but yeah, so after that.
Sorry, so Rădiciu as a weird basically is a case of what might have been.
I think the one thing Rădiciu could be remembered for is he scored a beautiful goal in the cup. He got the ball, if I remember rightly, for West Ham on the edge of the area and curled it into the top corner. Which, for all the things that Rădiciu is remembered for at West Ham, he is remembered for that beautiful, beautiful.
Yes, he did leave a memory, at least.
Yeah.
Upton Park, I think.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
So, I translate what you said earlier about Rădiciu. Ne povestește Max despre un episod din autobiografia lui Harry Redknapp. I think it was an excerpt from his autobiography in 1998. Harry Redknapp. Și acesta a spus despre Rădiciu că într-o zi avea un meci și nu s-a prezentat, l-a sunat sau se pare unul dintre prietenii lui l-a văzut într-un magazin. Un magazin de lux era acolo cu soția Rădiciu și el anunță să este bolnav. Deci probabil că nu a avut să se joace și să spună, dar este o legendă urbană, să știu exact. A fost așa. Harry Redknapp spune și a fost felul lui de a administra sau de a ce fața presei. Și ce mai spunea Harry Redknapp era că a fost o tranziție uriașă pentru cei care mai înainte stătea la coadă pentru o pui de timp de ești, după care a ajuns să facă ceas de 30 de minute la coadă. I also know an episode about this is one of his statements from Ilie Dumitrescu that when he transferred to Tottenham Hotspur, he had a shock because he came from Romania, where the situation after the Romanian Revolution was pretty tough in 1989. And when he was transferred to England, he had a shock because when he opened the fridge, his house, which was rented by the club, it was stacked. It was full of everything he needed. And he appreciated very much that gesture from the club, the fact that we had a full fridge. Which is not to say that he couldn't buy food himself, but that he was taking care of every detail, every aspect.
I was about to say, you'd think for a Romanian household, I know it's the old tradition of you have to always buy bread, wine and salt when someone moves in, so I hope Tottenham provided that.
Yeah, acel de la mai și spune că organizează asta acasă. Vin necesare atunci când se duce cineva prin casă nouă. Indeed, it's a Romanian tradition. You need to bring a gift to someone who has. So you did your research.
Yeah, no, that's my grandmother told me that. My grandmother told me the old Romanian tradition, if you buy the bread to feed people, the wine to drink, and the salt to keep away the spirits. She does it every time one of us move into a new home. So.
Bunica lui Max a învățat aceste tradiții și spune că face asta de fiecare dată când cineva se casă în familia lor. But there's also a third Romanian case for this one. This is the former defender of the Romanian national team. He was also captain at some point. István Oraț. What can you tell us about him? Was he an improvement from Dumitrescu and Giurgiu?
I remember he played about half a season for us. He wasn't exactly the best defender in the world, but he had an absolutely magical left foot. Like, if you put on corners and free kicks, like he could just put the ball anywhere, and it confused us all because you could see this guy running down the wing, putting in the best cross you've ever seen in your life, but yet he couldn't defend to save his life. It was bizarre. He would have been as a left winger, he would have been fantastic, but as a left back, left lot to be desired, really.
Despre Răzvan spune invitatul nostru de azi că se vedea care e clasă, se vedea că are experiență, însă dacă era foarte bine la cercări, în schimb să se apere mai puțin, deci nu ar fi trebuit să fie fundaș și central, ci să fie jucător de parte. Și acolo fi dat la mare, dar probabil că nu a fost folosit de asta și But anyway, he wasn't a total failure. He wasn't necessarily the worst player, which is good to hear. We also had the next few encounters between Romanian teams and this one. If you managed to like PhD. Like I said, we look forward to reading and maybe have some tidbits about players as well. And one of the most famous of them all is that game, games that Star played in the States and are they remembered? Because I know that most of the times clubs knocked you out of your competitions?
What I remember of it really is, bizarrely, I remember that West Ham wore their away kit for the home and away games. As you can see, yeah, that white kit was our away kit that season. So it was totally bizarre that in Romania and in Bucharest and in London that we wore the away kit for both games. I think it's because it clashed with the Red Estelle. But I remember at home in London, it was a brilliant. It was the second leg. It was a really great 0-0 game, and I remember. I think Frank Lampard. That's how long ago it was. Frank Lampard was playing for West Ham, and he almost scored. Paolo Di Canio almost scored, and then no doubt, as you can see. Yeah, that's about right. Paolo Di Canio annoying, half the scouting. That's Paolo Di Canio at his best, or his worst, depending on how you see it. Yeah, I remember the second leg was in London was brilliant, and you know it could have very easily been a 2-0 win to West Ham and gone to extra time. But that first leg in Bucharest, it just I don't know what went wrong with West Ham, but they just didn't show up really. And you guys and Stow played fantastically. Stow absolutely. I remember. If I'm right, was it Roshu? Your left winger at the time? Yeah. He played that. Yeah, I remember he got the ball on the left wing and played, or the right wing and played an absolutely beautiful volley across the goal off the post into the net. If I remember rightly. It was I remember that watching that, and I know there's a lot of West Ham fans who fondly remember their time in Bucharest and how lovely Stow fans were to them and made them feel welcome in Bucharest. And even recently, which I need to apologise for, by the way, about recently when we played during the Cup. And I know we won 3-0 in Bucharest, but the game in London was very contentious at best. And honestly, FCSB were the better team for the majority of that game, really, and I think you deserve to win the first game of the group compared to the last game of the group.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know that it was somewhat of at least psychologically, it was really important for Stava because after losing that game, after the disappointment in the competition. Pretty much this month. Moving forward. So this is a photo from another encounter with the teams a few years ago against Astra. Astra at some point even managed to win the title in Romania, and they also I think they played 2 times against different competitions. But I think both of those clashes between West Ham and Astra had the same outcome. In favor of Astra qualified.
I think, as you can see on my face right now, the pain and the horror of having to remember playing Astra, who, correct me if I'm wrong here, they don't exist anymore. They folded recently. They went out of existence. Yeah, there's a long-running joke amongst the West Ham fan community that every time we play in Europe, that we always worry we're going to run back into Astra at some point. So now they're not in existence anymore. We all breathed a sigh of relief. No, we never had to compete against them in Europe. It was bizarre playing Astra because we played them, I think, 2 seasons in a row and lost both games. It was just bizarre. You know, we played really well for about half an hour and then almost forget we were a football team. It was bizarre. And then just completely capitulate. Really?
That's also my recollection.
Yeah.
Because 2 seasons in a row, and without heartbreak that told us about. Îmi spune Max despre faptul că există o glumă pe care fanii Giurgiu la Max să nu mai cabe asta, dar acum că s-a discutat asta, să nu se mai pune aceste probleme, nu se vor mai întâlni. Deci mi-a marcat această întâlnire, cele două întâlniri consecutive cu asta și faptul că au fost eliminați. Some very good stories about Romania. Some of them are very funny, some of them involve heartbreak, yes. But nonetheless, I think it was a good experience for both of the countries.
Yes.
To have these football matches, and maybe get to know each other better. Like you said, all the friendliness between Romanian and England fans, English fans. There's this new regulation about additional time, which can get down to 8 or 10 minutes. Do you think it is helpful for the teams or not?
I don't think it's helpful for the teams because you are tiring teams out, making them play almost 120-minute games. I mean, the England game against Iran was, I think, all in all, was about 115 minutes in the end. Yeah, so I think essentially you're tiring teams out, and Qatar is a very hot country, and players naturally are sweating a lot, and they're in a hot country, so they're just going to sweat more. And I think that's just not fair on the player, really. But I think.
I'm sorry, just a second. Really nice este față de jucător, mai ales că este și foarte înalt, să vorbi de multe, se căpește, lasă să energie și să mai poată întâmpla și să se marcheze în acele jucători. I know that in England nights we used to have 30 time, so this is Colina time.
Yes, Colina. Yeah, it's a very. I think what Colina is doing is right because he's trying to dissuade teams from time wasting at the end of games. But I think it's maybe a bit of an overkill in that respect of trying to force teams to play that much extra time. I think it's good in theory, bad in practice. To put it in a matter of words.
Pentru a traduce, care ziceți că pare o idee bună pe idee, dar atunci când o pun în practică trebuie să prost. Și vorbind de asta, trebuie să întreb și de arbitrajul video. What about VAR? What about video assistance for referees? We've seen that it can make mistakes.
I remember. I know the penalty you're talking about. I think that's the thing with VAR, isn't it? That, it's human error. As much as, the computers can show it in real time, and, there is still that element of human error. And I think sometimes with the angles of VAR, I think it makes maybe a situation look completely different because you're trying to isolate it in a context, which just sometimes doesn't work. I think it's a bizarre thing at times, VAR, because I think you're right. The Ronaldo penalty, I thought it was a penalty at first, but looking back on it, maybe not. But yeah, if you look at something like the Japan goal, when they beat Spain, there's a lot of contention now of, was it over the line, wasn't it over the line? And and then VAR very much was like, it didn't go over the line. So, I think VAR, at the end of the day, as you said, VAR's so contentious. I think it fundamentally still comes down to human error at the end of the day, whether it gets given or not.
And I think that's the most frustrating thing because you are trying to get rid of human imperfection, human error, and then you end up resorting to that same human eye. What about those sensors that are monitoring the human, the player's body and also the ball?
Yeah, that's bizarre. I didn't know until recently there was a sensor in the ball. That was new information to me, as I can imagine it was to you when the World Cup started. So I think it's interesting because it does pick up a lot of good things that we can talk about. But there's a great article out in Soccer and Society this month which talks about football. Us as football supporters were so desperate to find, context and complexity. So if we can figure out if the ball went over the line, or how hard someone's kicking the football, or how fast it's going, we're obsessed with it. Whereas really, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really count for anything, just as long as, the ball's in the back of the net and it went over the line.
Rămâne foarte multe de fapt. Vară și introduce sensul care corpul și corpul, mingea are că se complică și fotbal și mai și opusca acestei lucruri a acelui fotbal lucid. Energie cu imperfecțiile inerente, care până la urmă sunt atâtea secție. Asta individuals as this website, but sometimes technology gets in the way of passion. Football is the most beautiful game because it gives you so much to talk about. It's so perfect.
It is. It's an art form, really. I know Arsene Wenger calls it a form of art. I remember listening to him doing radio interview once, and the presenter was very skeptical about football. You could tell that, and the way he described it to her was almost a case of, it's an art form. It's like watching the ballet or just watching dance, and you see all the movements these dancers make, and you almost watch the footballers, and sometimes their movements mesmerise you, and that's what makes it beautiful. Or just the way a team plays football and passes around. And kind of knowing Arsene Wenger and the way that Arsenal used to play football, that makes a hell of a lot of sense.
For last question, Max, we've had the tournament in 2022 games. I think it was the same in Russia 4 years ago. It's the same in Qatar. But in 2026, when the US, Mexico, Mexico, and Canada will be hosting the World Cup, we'll have even more teams. There will be 48. So, with significant increase. I don't know how we'll manage to watch all the games because it's been hard.
I can imagine there'd be a lot of people taking their holiday at that time of the year just to watch the football. They'll go, not going anywhere beautiful or anywhere nice and sunny. They'll just be literally sat at home watching the multiple games on at any given time.
Probably divorcing because I've seen Adriano, the former Inter Milan striker and Brazil striker, divorced or something like that because his wife was not pleased with the fact that he was watching Brazil's game with his friends. Yeah, it's news some days ago. So yeah, it can cause friction between husbands at home.
Yeah. Yes, I know that. I don't know if this will be of any interest to anybody, but I remember reading a fact a few weeks ago that I think it was in 2019 that 35 women in their divorce claims put down that Football Manager had been the main reason for their divorce. So, Football Manager's causing divorces. What can the World Cup do? Especially a 48-game World Cup.
Great point. Max ne povestea despre faptul că acum câțiva ani în cererea de divorț, procesele de divorț a fost pretextat de către americani de faptul că soțile se joacă prea mult în joc video, ca să știți, zicem așa, cronofagă. Consumă foarte mult timp, astfel că probabil soțile le greșeau. So yeah, the football manager is famous for doing households and families. And I also know a story about the husband who at some point during the night got up and he went to the kitchen. I think it was a story in the English press. And he started sobbing, he started crying. And his wife came to him and said, what's the matter? He said, I got fired. Oh, you got fired? You're broke? You're gonna sell the house or something? And he said, no, you don't understand. I got fired from football manager. So that's another true story, or a story. Deci o poveste din fotbal despre football managerul, soție la un moment dat se duce în pătărere, se duce pe soție cu zi de somn și până și spune, ce s-a întâmplat, ce ai putut ceva? Ea a fost dat afară. Cum a fost dat afară? Fără casă, suntem faliți. Nu am înțeles, a fost dat afară doar din football manager. Closing remark, do you see starting for England against France?
Oh, you want me to give you my starting lineup? I think it would be Pickford in goal, Trippier at right back, and a back three central defenders of Walker on the right to help Trippier and nullify Mbappe, Stones on the left, and then Harry Maguire as the more attacking of the three coming out, because Harry Maguire loves to go exploring really when he defends. So I think if he gets beaten by Griezmann, at least Stones and Walker will be there to help him clean up. Shaw at left back, Rice and Bellingham as the two holding midfielders. I'm trying to count now. How many players I've done? I said 6. 8. And then I think it will be a front three of Saka, Foden, and Kane.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the most important, the one who could score that goal?
I think, if anything, it'll be. Ooh, I think it most likely will be Bukayo Saka.
Saka again. That's his age again.
Saka, I believe, is either 19 or 20. He's not much older than Jude Bellingham.
He's very, very young.
Yeah, very young. He's the future of English football, to say the least.
Yeah, he's also showing a lot of maturity. He's like Rashford a few years ago.
Yeah, I think I'm glad Rashford. I think potentially may score if England do drag the game out a bit longer, and we do bring Rashford off the bench at 0-0. I can see Rashford scoring. He has got a habit of scoring goals off the bench when necessary. So, fingers crossed.
Good luck against France.
Thank you very much. Lovely speaking with you too. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Am fost Max Portman și producător pentru ziarul de sport. Până data viitoare, aveți grijă de voi și urmăriți cât posibil fotbalul de calitate și nu vă faceți sport. La revedere!